everybody. Welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It is me, it is Nate, coming at you right after some very normal politics have been happening in both of our respective countries. So let's get into that. Nate, how's things doing in England?
Oh, man. Well, so where to begin? The best way to describe what's happening, if you are American or not British, or you just aren't following British politics, even without any kind of, close interest, you've probably heard allegations that the Labour Party has an anti-Semitism problem. And you may, if you follow British politics, know that the basically Equalities and Human Rights Commission in the UK is supposedly investigating the Labour Party, and a lot of centrist dads and assholes will say that no party in Britain has been investigated by the EHRC except for the British National Party, which is sort of like a far-right party that got absorbed into the Conservative Party with, zero change to their politics, of course. So obviously Labour lost the election. There's been some serious contention as to whether or not the EHRC investigation was being used as a means of trying to dispose of Jeremy Corbyn's leadership before the election. Obviously, when they lost, conveniently, the report that was supposed to come out in January got delayed because all of a sudden it wasn't important anymore because they didn't have the Labour left party to fucking destroy. However, that's my spin. But there was a report that you would describe as the leader's office prepared to submit to the EHRC for consideration, because specifically the EHRC is not investigating whether or not Labour is anti-Semitic. What they're investigating is whether or not Labour's procedures for combating or dealing with anti-Semitism or any kind of intolerance are up to snuff, basically. So this report was prepared. Apparently it was delivered to the new leadership team, who ignored it. And the new leadership team also decided to not submit it to the EHRC because they thought it was outside of the scope of the investigation. The report then leaked, and it was initially reported on in snippets by some media organizations. Then the full document leaked, and everyone was able to read it. And the best way I can describe it is, it's like the DNC emails times 1,000. It shows that the Labour Party, particularly between 2015 when Corbyn won the leadership role and 2018 when they finally replaced the old right-wing party secretary with a new appointee, not only were they slow-rolling or deliberately ignoring claims of anti-Semitism, they were lying to the leader's office, telling them they had been dealt with when they hadn't been. They had been, in many cases, they completely dropped the ball or intentionally ignored cases of things like people who were doing Holocaust denial, people making obviously anti-Semitic remarks, because they weren't interested in kicking those people out of the party. They were interested in kicking people out of the party who supported Corbyn, who had liked Facebook pages saying things like, I don't know, socialism is good. They were basically, they hired somebody to process complaints who was unqualified for the job. And they said, your job is trot hunting, as to say Trotskyites, because right-wing British people are convinced that everyone who is to the left of, everyone who's to the left of Margaret Thatcher is secretly a Trotskyite. So obviously what this led to was this massive backlog of cases, which were then used against the leadership, saying they didn't take it seriously. But that's not even 1/8 of what's in this report. There's just massive levels of abuse, massive levels of racism, Islamophobia, sexism, weird fucking shit, saying that they want to hang and burn Jeremy Corbyn's body, saying that they hope that a labor activist they don't like dies in a fire, saying that they think basically that they calling some of Corbyn's team leadership like a fat pig, a pube head. I don't know what the fuck that's even supposed to mean. Basically hating on every Labour MP that's not white, finding out that after receiving a bunch of death threats, Diane Abbott, who was Labour's shadow Home Secretary, who was the first black woman MP in the country, that she was crying in the bathroom after receiving death threats. They were like, oh, we know where she's at. Let's dime her out so that reporters can come into the bathroom and record her crying. They had diverted a secret budget to create a shadow office so that they could run election stuff, defending right-wing Labor candidates or MPs who were not in danger of losing their seats, with the expectation of setting up a parallel structure so they could immediately throw everyone who was involved with Corbyn out after the 2017 election, which they expected to lose, which they wanted to lose. They were furious that the Labor started to do well. When Labor won seats, they were all having panic attacks. Legitimately, they said the worst thing that ever happened to the Labor Party is when we let members have a say. Basically, they were shitting on campaigners. They were constantly trying to undercut their own party. It was basically revealed that not only is Corbyn too left for them, but basically Ed Miliband was too left for them. Gordon Brown, who was to the right of the party, was too left for them. The best way I could describe it is, imagine if the DNC emails times 1,000 and it's revealed that everybody who works at the DNC is actually a Republican. What? That's the way I would describe this.
And this is what's confusing. Why be in the Labor Party? Like,
I have because their dads were in the Labor Party and they got offered jobs. That's the best way I could describe it. Like, these are all a bunch of rich failed children who have no real politics besides, I want to be invited to like the racist magazine's garden parties, but because their dads were in Labor, they're in the Labor Party too. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's gotta at least like Democrats can, say like, well, at least we're they could say at least we're pro choice. I know Democrats have been courting the pro life Democrats or whatever, but there are like some stark differences between Democrats and Republicans. It's not many. It's like pro choice and pro trans people, and that's about it. But even, like I said, even both of those is kind of they're pro those. But then
also,
things.
Let's be perfectly honest. I mean, like in 2017, Obama's former campaign manager came over to the UK to help run the Tories campaign, right. the Conservative Party, because right. Obama and the Obama Democrats are basically have more in common with the British Conservative Party than they do with the Labour Party, at least under Corbyn. But what this leak reveals is that if the people who have jobs in the Labour Party had their say, the Labour Party would effectively be to the right of Cameron, or to the right of the conservative Liberal Democrat coalition, and then subsequently the post-2015 conservative government that decided to have the Brexit referendum that then led to this permanent meltdown state that we're in now. And so when you think about how much blood, sweat, and tears got fucking expended by labor activists to fight for this election that came so close, that had some resources been diverted in certain areas, you might legitimately have seen labor being able to form a government in coalition because it was that close. Like, if you look at how close some of those marginal seats were in 2017, I believe there's an analysis that showed that basically if something along the lines of 2,500 votes had swung differently across those different seats, Labor would have had enough seats to go into coalition with the SNP and have a government. So it was that close. And these people fought tooth and nail to make sure Labor did as badly as possible, basically freaked out and were rending their garments when Labor did well. Basically, they actively fought to lose the campaign for their own party. And all of this was revealed. So, I mean, and of course, the way that they're spinning it now is, how dare you release this? This is a violation of data protection. It's a fucking joke, and
that's the only like it's not, oh shit, sorry that we said all these things. It's how dare you expose the shit that we've said. Which, I mean, which is about right.
After the Manchester bombings, they basically were like, see, this is why moderate Islam doesn't exist and Muslims are bad. It's like, you do realize that your party depends massively on the vote of Bangladeshi and Pakistani Muslim people, right? Like, a significant chunk of those safe labor seats are because Pakistani, communities of Pakistani heritage who are British citizens who vote like 99% for Labor. And you rich fucking idiots, you think you can just shit all over those votes because, like, oh, they're going to vote Tory? No, they're just not going to vote, you stupid fucks.
I wonder what that sounds like. Couldn't be another superpower in this world that is probably looking at
surely
the exact
there's
same.
No party. Surely there's no other party in the English-speaking world that does this.
Yeah. Over here, we have lost our boy Bernie, who's decided to suspend his campaign, probably because he sees that there is a big coalition against him, but also he actually has a job because he is a senator. I don't think Joe Biden has a real job.
He does not have a real job.
He doesn't have a real job. So he and also, like, during this whole pandemic, he's just kind of sitting by the sidelines. His Twitter account is tweeting platitudes that mean absolutely nothing. So Sanders bowed out, and people, you can tell what kind of strength Democrats are going to have going into the 2020 election, because like Democrats are more excited that Bernie lost than they are excited that Biden won. And then like when you press them, they're like, well, Biden wasn't my first choice. I would have rather, and then they name literally every other person. It's like, then why is Biden the one who won? Like, why did, if you liked Mayor Pete, then why did Mayor Pete bow out when he was ahead? Why all these things? Why did they get behind Biden? And that's the thing. Like I try to wrap my mind around, like, I didn't think Sanders was going to win, because as a leftist, I assume everything terrible. But there was some hope and there was some fun, and we all had fun doing it. And for better or worse, even Sanders not winning means that he is going to push a lot of people to the left. Not necessarily politicians, but maybe us, people out here who think maybe we should, tax the rich more and have health care for everybody. Those things sound good and better for society in general. But I just, as soon as you start pressing the vote blue no matter who immediately come out and start doing you leftists, you better come out here and you better be voting. And like, let me tell you something, us shitheads on Twitter are not the reason why you're going to lose an election. It's, when you looked at the people who were going to caucus for Bernie Sanders, what did you see? You saw, as you said, immigrants, you saw teachers, you saw people who were sometimes, some of them maybe first time, like getting really into this because they have a candidate they want to get behind. And then you give them a candidate who wants to get behind Joe Biden. Like, I don't trust him. I don't like him. And I come from a privileged place to say I won't vote for him. Privileged in that I am a middle-class white person, but also privileged in that my vote doesn't matter because I live in Missouri. We want 20 points for Trump. The best I see us doing is going only 17 points for Trump in 2020. So like literally my vote doesn't matter. And I just, there is going to be a lot. It's going to be 2016 all over again, honestly. Like maybe Biden is going to do better with the whole, now we know better. Now you better go vote for me because now we know better, and you see what a danger Trump is, so you better go out and vote for me. But like his concessions to the left are shit. He's like, we'll lower Medicare to 60. Like, what the fuck does that do for anybody? So it's once again, like the Labor Party, the Democrats are just going to shoot themselves in the foot. And like, you could, and as we see in England, you do coalitions. You're like, well, we're Labor and we can, get together with I don't know who else is there. But you can, the Tories and the Lib Dems can, form a coalition. It's like, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. We can form, some kind of, group here where we take care of one another, and then we'll have power. And it's like Democrats just don't understand that, where you could have Biden come out, who has come out and said, I'm going to, I want to reach out to the Sanders people because, fucking, he knows that we're, and again, not just us shitheads on Twitter, just like in general, you do need to do outreach to Sanders people. And I just don't see that happening. I don't see that happening in a way that is going to not be insulting. And then you're going to get insulted online by Sanders people. So in general, for me, I'm done with this. Like, I'm not, I had a couple of threads about fuck Biden, but honestly, and I deleted them because just like, I'm just done. Like, I don't want to talk about him anymore. He's no longer my concern. The presidential election is no longer a concern of mine. And that's, if you're feeling disaffected by everything that's happening here, if you're feeling like electoral politics doesn't work for you, that's fine. I'm not saying you got to pick up a Molotov cocktail. What I'm saying is that you should look into more things, local politics, community-wide things, because that's how you win. I mean, if you want to win, federally, you got to start winning locally. and then push those people up the flagpoles to the national scene. Democrats don't really seem to understand that. They think, oh, we won the presidency, so now we're in power. Well, the House and the Senate and the judiciary all like shit all over them. So I don't know, just it's not worth it. It's not fun anymore. I'm going back to just having fun online. And also, you just get into arguments with people, man. Like, I'm tired of fighting about Joe fucking Biden. I'm tired of expending energy. Like, if y'all love Joe Biden, go phone bank for him, go raise money for him, go knock your socks off. I'm not going to. The most you can hope is maybe if he concedes enough stuff and promises me enough stuff, maybe I'll vote for him. But probably not. So, everything else though, I'm also not going to shit talk him anymore online. I'm not going to be the anti-Biden, but I'm also not going to be the pro-Biden. That's what you'll get out of me.
Well, ultimately too, we can only provide perspective as two dumbasses who happen to be in the military at one point. And so as a result, I don't really think that anything that I'm going to say about Joe Biden or the Democratic Party is particularly novel. But I do think that there's a larger picture to be discussed about the extent to which we have a culture of placing faith in institutions. And I think that if you look at the Labor Party, if you look at the Democratic Party, if you look at a number of things, one of the concerns that I have is that lots of folks, whether they're leftists or centrists or whatever, they look at the party and they say, okay, well, they won, or, my faction won, so all is going to be going smoothly. And what I think this shows is that, looking from my perspective, is that if Bernie had won, the Democratic Party would have done everything to fuck him, to intentionally lose so they could blame it on the left. The Labor Party tried that. They failed the first time. They definitely succeeded the second time. And that those people who were doing this, none of them have lost their jobs. Almost all of them are still employed by the party today. The guy who was chiefly responsible for this fuckery in the Labor Party left his post in 2018 and got made a lord in the House of Lords. So not only is he making like fucking massive 6-figure money just for existing, he's literally, he got promoted to like the aristocrat Senate. So it's absurd. I think that by extension, this notion of institutions will save us or institutions mean we're in good hands, that concern also applies to the military, because you look at this nightmare we're facing right now with quarantine and with coronavirus, and you look at, for example, some of the stories that we've been following. For example, the aircraft carrier, the Theodore Roosevelt, and the extent to which the government, basically the Trump administration, does not want to admit the crisis it's facing, to the point where effectively they both fired and tried to badmouth a captain of this aircraft carrier who was trying to raise the alarm that, given the way berthing works inside these ships, by berthing, berthing, I mean the way sailors being arrayed in their bunks, a contagious disease like this is going to devastate a ship like the Theodore Roosevelt. As we know now, at least one sailor has died of coronavirus, but there's 5,000 odd people inside this aircraft carrier, and they knew this was going to be a disaster. And what did they do? They fired the captain, and then the then Secretary of the Navy flew to Guam to then get on the boat on their PA system and basically call them a bunch of pussies, for lack of a better expression.
Yeah, it's incredible, because all of the things that I've been reading back and forth, immediately when something like this happens, you have, your people on the left saying, what a hero, what a great guy. And then people on the right saying, this guy is a piece of shit. He should have been fired. He was passed over for promotion. He was this, that, and the other thing. And just, in general, bad-mouthing whoever it is. And the thing is that we see that Captain Crozier was correct. Like, at this point, the Theodore Roosevelt has been mostly evacuated. People who don't have the virus are being quarantined in a hotel in Guam. Other people are being, put. They're being taken care of if they are sick. And you've got a very small skeleton crew. And I'm not in the Navy, and I'm not a nuke tech, but I've been reading a lot of posts, Nate. So I've read 10,000 posts, so I'm pretty much an expert. But like, you can't you can't just like everybody I'll just leave the boat for a while and we'll be fine. Like, it's nuclear, it's powered by nuclear power. Like, there's nuke techs on that have to be there. When we say a skeleton crew on an aircraft carrier, we mean 500 people, because those nuke doors got to be you gotta have somebody looking after them to make sure that, one, that they're safe, that they're not going to, get all wonky. And two, you got to have security people to make sure dumbasses like me don't wander into a nuke room and start poking at stuff. So, this is not some like, easy thing to do. And these people are not easy to replace either. It takes 18 months to become a nuke tech. And like, that's just your basic run of the mill, shit, private sailor, seaman, whatever it is, that is becoming this a nuclear technician. So it's not easy. And the captain was trying to do this in a way where, it wouldn't be a problem. Like, hey, let's evacuate people now. And he went to the people, he went to his own people with this, because he put out like, hey, let's evacuate everybody as much as we can. 4,500 people. This is about 5,000 people on a aircraft carrier, and they're like, no, we'll do half. It's like, no, this is fucked up. Let's not do this, because as you said, Nate, the berthing on a ship, and really the way that the military sleeps is not good, is not conducive to good health in any way, shape, or form. We've talked about it, how barracks bays are the way that you prevent disease is that, like, okay, I'm gonna sleep my head facing north, and the guy next to me will face his head facing south, and we just do that back and forth up and down the bay, and that way we're not all breathing directly onto each other, which is not how, like, I mean, maybe that works, but I've always gotten.
I think that if you're in a confined space, it probably matters a hell of a lot less than you think it does. Like, in the sense that, yes, great, but if you're in a space that isn't having good ventilation, I don't think the difference in head placement and foot placement is going to make up for the fact that germs are circulating.
Right. And it's not, okay, so maybe you guys are safe while you're sleeping, but you're still out, you're still on ranges, you're still training, you're still afterwards hanging out, playing, spades or bullshitting, or just out on the smoke deck. Like, you're still like within, you're still within close proximity of one another. So it's, and something like COVID, man, that shit spreads very easily. Just like anything else spreads. Coughing, people not covering their mouths, people not wearing face masks and stuff. So it's not great. It's not a smart idea to just let that kind of go by the wayside. So yeah, so the captain sends an email to other military people saying, this is fucked up. We got to do something about this. And then a shitstorm happens. And it's one of those, it's, the different shitstorms, right? Like, there's your shitstorm of like, oh God, everything is broken and we need to do something to fix it. And then, but you have good leadership, and that leadership is, working to make things better. And then you have your shitstorm of, we just got found out and it's too late to cover this up, but we're still going to go ahead and try to cover it up. Which is what, we did. The captain got fired. And the incredible thing is, on this article on MSN, is when you dig into it, like, the Maudley, who was the acting Navy secretary, fired Crozier not because he thought like, oh, Crozier did a bad thing. You broke chain of command. You broke OPSEC, something, anything like that. He fired him because he just thought that's what Trump wanted, and he wanted to be the acting Navy secretary. He wanted to be the Navy secretary, not the acting Navy secretary. So, like, not only is he not was the person in charge of the Navy not necessarily looking at this on a level of at least trying to make an excuse of operational security or an excuse of breaking chain of command and going around people or going above heads. Which, guess what, we do in the military constantly. Like, you're supposed to do that. If my NCO is not going to provide the support or the help or for whatever I need, you go over that person to the next level. Like, that's absolutely, you're supposed to go to your first line, but you go to your second line if you go one more up if things are still shitty and dangerous. And then he flew to Guam, like, got on an airplane, flew to Guam, spent 15 minutes telling these sailors that their captain was naive and stupid, then flew back, denied that he ever said those things, and then when pressed said, well, if I said those things, they came from the heart, so I stand by them. And then when, after listening to the actual audio recording and handed in his resignation, said, I didn't mean those things that I said. Like, and this is the whole USS Theodore Roosevelt, is this whole saga is a perfect encapsulation of the Trump administration, of what we see when we have people that are thinking of their own interests more than they're thinking about the people that are put underneath them. And I know that this is not like just, this isn't new to the Trump, this never happened before. Obviously, this is, shit, even in the military, people are, more concerned about their careers than, than the people who are under them constantly. But like, it's just really fucked up to know that the person that was put in charge of you doesn't give a fuck about you. And to have that evidence, like, just laid out, just be like, to throw a captain who you like under the bus. People liked, that Captain Crozier. I'm probably mispronouncing his name. I think Crozier sounds right. People liked him. They cheered for him when he left. And I mean, look, every 06 is going to have people who are like, fuck that guy. But like, if you're a good 06, if you're a good leader, most people are being like, fuck that guy, but at least he's a good leader and didn't deserve this. And that seems to be like the general consensus from people is, from people who matter at least. And interestingly enough, I found an op-ed from The Hill, and it's this whole like, I was reading it and it's like, this seems weird that there's this whole like article on how the founders love, how you're breaking chain of command and the founders never would have liked this. And then I posted on Twitter and somebody pointed out, it's like, yeah, that's by John Yoo, the guy who like beats off to torture and like wrote the torture memos. And so fuck that guy. And so, yeah, again, it's always the shittiest people in the world who are just like, oh, well, what about our norms? What about our social norms? What about, in the military, you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, man, it's a fucking pandemic. Like, you can't, I'm sorry, if you're turning to the Constitution on what to do during a pandemic, go fuck yourself, man. Those people were dumb as shit, man. There was 1700s. What the fuck did they know? They won a war.
Exactly. I mean, like, okay, great. Appeal to these abstracted ideals, but like, you are in a situation in which a decision could be made to either save the lives of people who are absolutely at risk and do not deserve to be condemned to death simply because you think it's embarrassing that the military, like any other grouping of humans, is at risk for this virus. To me, it's just any part of the government, whether it's the Department of Defense or anywhere else, because it falls under the purview of, the president's control, in the sense that ultimately he's the commander-in-chief of everything, and ultimately the federal government has to respond to whatever the administration directs them to. There's an extent to which this is all kind of like a damage mitigation thing. Like, they don't really care as long as it keeps it out of the headlines. They don't care how many people get smoked by the wayside, as long as those numbers aren't tallied up in a way that embarrasses the administration. They genuinely don't care. And to me, I feel like there's two big takeaways here. Number one is that we as Americans, maybe we should clarify, as white Americans, are brought up to believe that if you do the right thing, that you will always win out because the truth will win out, and that doing the right thing will always result in, you know, the outcome in which the scrappy underdogs win and the rich kids from fucking summer camp don't win. When in truth, we know that the rich kids from summer camp not only always win, but literally made massive profits off the movie that inspired you to believe this dumb bullshit. In this situation, doing the right thing did not result in a positive outcome. Like, maybe you could say that it slightly mitigated it, but really, in the grand scheme of things, this guy, the captain, did the right thing and got nuked for it. But the only potentially positive direction is not even really all that positive. It's that the idiot Secretary of the Navy fucking resigned and now is replaced by the Secretary of the Army, also a dumbass. However, the big point I want to point out is that we're always told in the military that there's an extent to which you've got to accept that the mission comes first. You know, it's mission first, people always. Hence the NCO creed, et cetera, whatever part of the NCO training that involves. But this is not a wartime situation. This is not a battle. This is not like, all right, look, in order to ultimately achieve the objective we set out to achieve, we have to take risks that might result in the deaths of our subordinates. That's not this situation. You are not dying on the USS Theodore Roosevelt because you have to win the fucking Battle of Iwo Jima. You're dying for optics. You're dying for headlines. You're dying because you are expendable. And that's the big takeaway I feel like anyone looking at this needs to see, to the administration, to your leadership, to anyone. And maybe not in this case of this boat, because the captain obviously had his sailors back, but to the administration, to the brass, to the higher ups, you are expendable, not because there's a battle to win, but because doing the thing that would save people's lives makes them look bad, makes the situation look as bad as it actually is. Thus, it's better for you to die anonymously for no reason so that the headlines aren't quite as bad as they would be otherwise. And if you think that's an ungenerous interpretation, I would invite you to stop being a fucking child.
Yeah, it's not great, guys. And I mean, if you were in the military and you didn't know you were expendable, that you were just like something to be used to, I don't know, test out an anthrax vaccination or be given drugs that are like horrible for you, that completely destroy your gut, biome and flora and whatnot, or just because they're like, oh, I mean, we could try other things, but let's just do the nuclear option and, take this and it'll maybe not kill you, and then you'll feel better afterwards. We've always been expendable, Nate. We've known that. I mean, look at these stupid fucking wars. Who needs to die in these wars? Over what? For what? To get what? Nothing. You're all dying, and you have PTSD, and we got our shit fucked up for no reason other than optics, which is just how it always has been, and that's just how we work. I guess that's just how the military operates, and it's not just this administration. It's been all of them. I don't know, man. It's depressing to think. It's depressing to think about, but like also, I get that little heart flutter of glee deep in my chest whenever I see people who were in or are in being very upset about how people are being treated right now. And you can only lead a horse so far before it's got a drink on its own. But there is that kind of just like, wow, that's pretty messed up, pretty crazy how like we've just allowed this to happen, and this can happen regardless about, votes or anything. Maybe the military is not a great idea, huh? And sometimes you're going to get somebody. Probably not. But Nate, it's all shit. But I guess we've known that. So, speaking of people who don't deserve to die, let's talk about the Marine Corps. Also in COVID-related news, because what other fucking news is there for us to talk about right now? In Camp... sorry. Oh, sorry. So, in Camp Pendleton, the barbershops are remaining open because the base commander wants Marines to maintain their high and tights. They are taking precautions. They're only allowing a few Marines in at a time. Everybody's wearing gloves and face masks. But if you look at the lines where Marines are standing in lines waiting to get haircuts, nobody there is wearing face masks or anything. They're all standing in parade rest. Some are maintaining 6 feet, many are not. But it's Nate. We got to maintain our norms, and if there's one thing we've learned from the Marines is they cannot win a war if they don't have very short hair and a stupid looking haircut.
Yes, that is very, very true. If there were at any point a branch of the armed services that would decide that it's better for its members to die versus having slightly longer hair, it is the fucking Marine Corps. That to me is such a no-brainer. It's not even funny.
John Basilone was awarded 2 medals of honor because his hair was just so fucking short, man. Just so fucking short. We're not even at, Pendleton is not even really at war. And, even the people at war probably don't have to, I don't know.
Yeah, Pendleton's in fucking San Diego, California.
The
only thing they're at war with is our goddamn air conditioning. This is such a, once again, this is people deciding that even in an actual life or death emergency, it's more important to maintain optics than to react to the actual emergency.
And not only just, maintaining optics, but, trying to maintain some, we've got to maintain a sense of normalcy. Nothing's normal right now, and it's okay. It's okay to say shit's not normal. We're going to relax the standards for a little bit. Or just telling, Marines, hey, buy a pair of clippers. I own a pair of clippers. I paid $20 for them. You can share them, I'm not saying swap haircuts, but, you can disinfect them and, send them over to your buddy and he can cut his own. You can cut your fucking hair. This is absolutely ridiculous. And it's, I don't know, it's just so Marine to me, but also it's so military. And I would love to say that this is a, this is a one-time thing. This is only the Marines. But we've got, in my own state, the Secretary of State is demanding to reopen his offices way before the shutdown is done. So this is just, I don't know. Who's making money here, Nate? That's my biggest question. Is it the barbers? Is it the fat barbers that can't fucking do a haircut properly and are getting paid in pogs? Do they get a bonus for this shit? Or is there literally just a commandant somewhere that can't get over the fact that he might see a Marine with hair that touches their ears? Maybe a little bit of both.
There's a kind of when a sergeant major goes into a hall of mirrors and starts yelling at his own reflection for uniform violations. Multiply that times 1,000 and you have this situation here. I agree with your overall premise, though, that in a way what you're seeing is just sort of a very, very military response, that when people are confronted with a problem that's unprecedented to, vice their experience, they react to it in a way that sort of reveals the limits of their ability to perceive the problem. Which is to say, faced with a once in a century, once in a lifetime pandemic, a massively infectious disease that is currently at a level of uncontrolled spread that you cannot mitigate it to a specific area, everyone has to take up a protective posture. In the face of that kind of threat, people are just yeah, but what about haircuts? Fucking haircuts, uniform standards, as if, you can catch COVID-19 because you left the dust cover open on your M4. Standards start slipping, Marines cut their hair, next thing you know, they're fucking coughing on each other. shut the fuck up. This is so stupid.
They're already coughing on each other.
The problem. Exactly. They're already coughing on each other because chances are good if they're infantry Marines, but probably in general. I assume you probably got them in fucking barracks rooms, 2-4 ahead to the goddamn room. And what is that actually doing to mitigate this disease? Are those Marines wearing fucking protective masks? Like, so many things. Yeah, like you said, if you're not mitigating those risks the way that we know how to, you're actively making it worse. And no amount of fucking push-up competitions is going to compensate for the fact that you're making the problem worse. So shouts out to all those junior leaders in the military having to react to their terrible chain of commands, apparently. I, for one, am shocked, actually not shocked, because I think this disease, this crisis, is revealing the extent to which some people can only operate within very, very narrow confines. And when the situation changes, the overall situation changes, they're just unable to react. And I mean, this is, to me, a situation as grave, as serious as anything I've seen, and I think anyone alive has seen in America. And I think if you look at a situation like 9/11, and you look at the military's change in posture after that, you think about the sea change that took place. I don't think this current crisis is any different in terms of the risks and the change to the operations that it presents. But people are reacting to it like, I don't know, like there's a bad lot of MREs somewhere and you got to be careful because otherwise you might get the shits. As opposed to, this could completely upend the entirety of our fucking country.
It already has.
Now, it basically already has.
Right.
Yeah.
It's incredible to me that, like, Camp Pendleton, which, don't they do basic training there? Isn't that a place for
boot? Yes, they do.
Yeah, where boot camp is literally fucking suspended because of this shit. But you're still going to keep this is very much like, I'm sure if you sat down with the commandant or the commander of that base, they would within like 3 minutes tell you that COVID-19 is overblown. It's not killing as many people as the flu. If you look at these videos of healthcare workers having fun on the job, you can see that hospitals aren't actually overflowing. There's actually not a problem. It's all just overhyped. Guarantee it. Guarantee you'd get that from that guy. And you can see it because the one thing that he has control over, which is like the fucking grooming standards, is going to be the thing that he's like, nope. We're not going to, you goddamn libs might, take away my 18-year-olds that I get to fucking yell at, but you're goddamn not going to take away, my ability to yell at everybody else here. And that's what we're seeing. I guarantee it. So, fuck that guy. Sorry, Marines that out in Camp Pendleton, that the guy in charge of you is a huge dumbass and doesn't care if you get sick and die. Because you might. I mean, you might. And don't get me wrong, you might get sick for anything else, but like, we can handle the flu. We can handle a cold. This one's going to fucking go right up your ass and put you on it. So be careful, I guess. If we've got any Marines or sailors at Pendleton listening, order some clippers online and just buzz your head down. Order some clippers and a second, like a little hand mirror, so you can make sure that you get all the bits in the back where you can't see. And keep yourself, just if that's what's going to keep you from getting yelled at, but also make it so that you don't, catch some terrible lung disease that might, scar you for life. Do that. They're like $20 on Amazon, man. Go for it. That's all I got on that one.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think now is as good a time as ever to plug the bonus for this week, because instead of talking about the ways in which the military is trying to, what's the right word here, argue about the placement of the dining set on a house that's on fire, we talked about a different kind of housework, i.e. dad chat. Correct. Yes. This week, our bonus is Dad Chat. It's me and Francis off script talking about things that are important to us, and it's available for only $1 a month on the Patreon. So if you like it and you're interested in supporting us, we are in fact trying to include more bonus content at the lower price tier so that folks aren't obligated to spend a whole $5 if they want to get some bonus content and support the show. We obviously appreciate everyone's support, whether it's monetary or not. However, if you want bonus content, we got plenty. And so I'm going to roll about 10 minutes of that. You can hear it and know what you'd be in for if you decide you do want to support us.
Nate, you've recently moved, and I have recently moved. So, what's your home improvement plans? What you doing over there with your hammer drills and your nails?
Oh wow! So, I mean, our house that we're living in now, we signed a 2-year lease, and if we stay in the United Kingdom, I think we'd want to try to buy it. But obviously, like, it's a question of can we afford it? Because it's right now, at least, property prices in this country are insane. Will we be able to get a mortgage? Because, I mean, you can't get any kind of credit in this country until you've lived here for at least 3 years. And like my wife can't even get, I don't think I can even get a fucking credit card because we haven't lived here long enough. But we like this place a lot. And so, we have no plans of moving unless we leave the country, basically, because this place is awesome for us. But we're living in a row house that was built probably around 1900 to 1910. I'm guessing this because in the neighborhood there are some buildings like school buildings and other things that have like the date of construction and it's all like 1904, 1909, that kind of a thing. So full on Victorian row house. And everything is made out of brick. So like they built an additional room on the ground floor to be what was at one point like a big bathroom and is now like a smaller bathroom with a stand-up shower and a laundry room. But that's the only part of this house that uses, a drywall and filler and studs and stuff like that. Everything else is concrete and brick and concrete. So it is a fucking solid ass house, which means if you want to install anything, a shelf, a painting, a small picture, whatever, you can't even really use thumbtacks because it's basically plaster and brick. So I have a hammer drill, or at least what I thought was a hammer drill from the US, right? So it's like, looks like a fucking submachine gun. It plugs in. I use a transformer with it. But I don't know what the difference is. I cannot for the life of me get this thing to function. And there's a part of me that thinks that maybe its sort of utility as a power tool is that it can do like relatively low torque, but just like for a long time. So if you're doing something that needs that for a long time, you've got this thing that's a plug-in drill. But it was so fucking frustrating, like installing curtains and stuff, because it's an old building, so it's got high ceilings, and so like getting up on a stepladder with this submachine gun looking ass drill and a transformer and all this stuff to like plug in, it was annoying. So I finally broke down and bought, for about the equivalent of like $100, I bought a battery electric drill, and my God, okay, it's got like a hammer drill function. It is such a world of difference drilling into walls to install stuff. So like, whereas in the olden days, I remember like it was like a 1-day project for me to install this set of curtains that we bought. It's like a double barred set of curtains. So it's got like, an inner run and an outer run, and it had 3 points of attachment on each mounting bracket. So 6 holes total. It took me like 4 hours to install it. By comparison, I got this power drill, this battery drill, and I put up, I want to say 6 paintings in a night, because it's easy as hell. Like it goes right through it. Like the biggest part, honestly, like the hardest part of doing it is measuring out, the point of attachment to the top of the picture frame, and then figuring out where things are going to go. Like, what the difference is between like how far you want it off, like the bottom of the crown molding and stuff like that. So my plan really right now is, I just installed some shelves for Cynthia. I have one shelf in above my desk, and now like a slightly higher shelf that's offset where she can put stuff that she wants to, like, books, etc. I'm making shelves for her. Like I bought some wood about a year ago, and now that we have the space, we've been having beautiful, like insanely nice weather while we're locked down, of course. So I stained the wood. Basically, I went through, raised the grain, sanded, stained it through. Basically, you'd stain and then you sand it and then you clear coat it and then you sand it and then you stain it again, and you repeat that process with each color, and then eventually you get like this really kind of, there's a sort of blended color for the stain. The wood is oak, and so I want to say burnt sienna, raw umber, and then burnt umber. And then obviously like what I thought was shellac, but turned out to be anhydrous silicate, like basically like a matte sort of synthetic shellac powder. I've been doing clear coats with that. So I'm almost done. I think I need to sand it today and then polish it. And I think it's basically done. And then I'm going to install those shelves. So really, I want to say I have like 5 or 6 more paintings I still need to hang up. Because as listeners of the show know, I bought all these Spanish Civil War and Russian propaganda posters to put in my office to annoy my company commander in Afghanistan. And then when I was a single captain living in fucking Fayetteville with lots of money and nothing to spend it on, I got them all framed at Michael's. So I had just like this absurd, basically, collection of fucking propaganda posters that have been framed. And I had them on the walls in my, no joke, in like my 250 or 300 square foot apartment in New York. And now we're putting them up around here to like settle down for the long haul. And then other than that, man, honestly, probably like I need to do some gardening because like the weeds are going crazy, and I gotta clean that up. I need to build like basically a stand-in compost pile until I can get this like composter that I want to buy. And then also hilariously, in looking for a thing to cut the grass and weeds and stuff, I wound up yesterday on a website for British scything enthusiasts because yes, you can buy scythes, and yes, there are people who are really into scythes. So they're like vape nerds, but for fucking, medieval like harvesting equipment. And everything about scything is funny. So that's basically been my dad home improvement life. How about yourself?
Well, we moved from 3,000 square feet down to 1,100. And we had cleared out most of like our big stuff, kind of gotten rid of it. And a lot of things got taken to Savers, which is like a secondhand, store. You can donate. It's like Goodwill. But now everything's closed, so we can't take things to Savers. So we've been slowly unpacking. Like the basement of this house is just a wreck of just shit. My military, and I've got a pile, like I've got a nice stack, like, okay, here's all my army shit, here's all of my, nostalgia stuff, here's stuff, stuff that's not needed right now. So that's kind of what we're working through. And once we finally, because I swear to God, I'm still not closed on the old house, but we should be by Friday. And once we get the money from that, we're going to, buy some more shelving for the basement to really organize things out, because it's a very nice basement. We've got like a secondary playroom set up down there for Lily. That's got a lot of her. She's got like this little indoor tent. She's got a bunch of toys and stuff down there. So while we're down there, it's just a place where she can hang out and play and whatnot. So we've been doing that. I have like the exact same wall problem you do. The only thing, so there's 2 things that work. There's either these things called wall biters, which is like a little hook that has a claw on the back that you can hammer into the wall. And the only reason these work is because the claw is at such an angle that it doesn't hit the brick behind the plaster. Because anything else, like there's those hooks that you can drive a nail through. If you start driving the nail, it hits the brick and immediately bends on you. Like it doesn't even get. It gets maybe about halfway through. So everything has to either be like either these wall biters. I've got this other one that's like, it's a hook that's got like a little circle on it on the top. And in that circle is 3 little spikes, and you hammer the spikes in. That seems to really work. I hung up my whiteboard and my hell of a way to die wood burning. But yeah, I've got a lot of stuff to hang up too, but like now this is a shared office, so I'm trying not to immediately take all the wall space, but I feel like that's going to happen anyway with all my like my propaganda posters that I've bought and framed over the years and everything. Those are going to go up all over the place in here. I feel like this is going to be like, my wife has a desk in here, but she doesn't work in here very much because she worked in a travel agency. She doesn't fucking have much work at the moment. So it's really, just kind of my area. So I'm going to be doing more. But yeah, otherwise I got to get a hammer drill and some screws and anchors and really like sink something in. But I've got a great hammer drill that just, and masonry bits too. Those are really good.
Yeah, you definitely need the masonry bits, right, for sure.
All right, everybody, as always, and as Nate said, thank you for your support, financially, vocally, even if you hate us, we love our haters too. So our haters give us downloads. It all counts one way or the other, bitch. You can follow me at Army Strang. Follow Nate at In These Deserts. Follow us on Facebook. We also have the store at hellofawaytodie.com. We got lots of stuff, lots of ways to get with us. If you have an interview that you think might be good, whether it be yourself or somebody else, you can hit us up at any of those avenues. You can also email Sergeant Joker at hellofawaytodie.com. So until next week, Nate, we'll talk to you next week.